Hi, good morning. So I'm gonna come here as well. I'm trying to imitate Pavitra because it's comfortable to speak from here rather than speaking from there. So for those who know me, hi, good morning. It's really nice to see all of you. The warm hugs and the smiles on your face. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Akash Raut. Thanks, Howard, for the lovely introduction, the long introduction. I wanted it to be shorter. Um, why am I here today? So when Howard and we were discussing a couple of months ago about the symposium, he asked me, Akash, would you like to come and speak? And I was like, I'll be more than happy to come and speak to all the audience in the room. But what do I talk about? So the discussions went on, and when I got to know that the theme of this symposium is empowering individual success, I was like, yeah, there is something that lies at the core of success, that is learning. Without learning, there is no success. And we don't think so much about it, but we unknowingly connect learning with studying and exams and marks and grades, which need not be the case. Learning is such a pure form of, I would say, an activity, an experience, which all of us go through each and every moment. And the title of this presentation is Learning How to Learn, Empowering Learning, Efficacy. I'll come to that a little while later. But why learning? Why being a teacher? In my opinion, being a teacher is a privilege. And only a few on this planet Earth have got that privilege to be a teacher. So in 2018, when I was at DSB, I was teaching English, psychology, heading the Cambridge curriculum, I think at that point. And so Howard and there are a couple of other colleagues, Miss Usha, Miss Kamaljeet, Kemi, who is not here, Venisha, multiple other colleagues in the room, with whom we have built that capacity of teacher empowerment. And I think that is something DSB gave me in 2016 when I walked in. Rather, Usha was the first one who greeted me at the Orem House campus when I walked in. And she might remember the perplexed and the confused and the anxious 26-year-old Akash back then. So what happened in 2018 was, I think that was a kind of a prophetic message for me, which helped me understand that my existence is not just being a teacher at DSB, but it needs to go out of DSB as well. And I started this project called B, Borderless Education. The demarcations which we see in the education fraternity today are made by humans. A student who comes to DSB and a student who goes to a remote village somewhere in India should receive the equal, or I would say the equitable education opportunities. And that was the single motto for me to start with this initiative. I never flagged it up to a mass scale, never had my website, never did anything grand. But the most, I would say the topmost level of my accomplishment was reaching out to more than 10,000 teachers across the country and more than 25,000 students across the country in the last 6 years to help them understand the relevance of B. Now this B grew up over a period of time. The philosophy of B was not just borderless education, but it got blossomed into three main aspects. The aspect of being, the aspect of belonging, and the aspect of becoming. You cannot become something if you don't belong to that space. And you won't ever belong to a space if you don't be yourself. And I thank DSB for that because it helped me be myself. It helped me unfold the secret recipes that I had deep within me as a teacher, as an educator. Gave me the space to experiment with the teaching learning, which did help the learners. It helped me belong to this space and it helped me become who I am today. So if you see this fancy title of being the head academic advisor for schools across South Asia, I give this back to DSB. And I don't leave an opportunity to thank Howard because he was rather the first one who got me in over here. So all of this has helped me understand one thing, that learning is fun. And I pull it out from Pavitra's last P, playfulness. Like for the last 2 years, I have been engaged in a lot of research around early childhood education and what helps learners learn better. So I thought, why not talk about the learning efficacy itself? We all talk so much about learning, but are we even aware of how our learners learn? Most of us are aware over here, so it's a kind of a keynote come capsule workshop for all of us in the room for not more than 20 minutes, because Stephanie has graciously helped me with half an hour of her valuable time. So let's start with a spell test anecdote. Something you would be familiar with from your own life. I'm not going to read it out, you can read it for yourself. I'll keep changing the slides. Okay? A question to all of you. How did Tina feel in the end? Confident? 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 Anything else? Any other word that comes to your mind? Satisfied? Enthusiastic? Empowered? Okay. Relieved? Yes, she was relieved. It's done and I know what I'm doing. Okay. Nothing jinxed. These were not the paid audience. Tina did feel confident. Okay? Now what I want you to do now is turn to your partner and think about one memory of your learning from your childhood or maybe this morning which is really, really with you even today. This morning or maybe when you were 3 years old. I give you just 30 seconds to discuss that with the partner who is sitting next to you. If you don't have a partner, find a partner. You don't have a partner, okay. You can talk to me. Okay, you'll be fearless about questioning. And you will ask questions.
Always doubt in whatever is being said and question.
Okay.
And only when you are satisfied that you believe in what's being said.
Okay, lovely. I think that's the whole fundamental of learning, to ask questions. And if you don't question, you don't know what's happening.
This is my request. When you have maybe you think 5-6 minutes, you think left, can you just let me know?
Yeah. Or maybe when my time is coming to an end, you just give me a signal and I can wrap it up. Okay. Don't worry. I'm anyways narrating.
Is there a particular time that you want to end?
I was given, so it's 11:20, 30.
11.
So by 11:45 I'll end. Is that okay?
Okay.
Wow. This is a learning space. Okay, how many of you are feeling relieved now? Yes, at least a couple of you that you got to talk, you got to speak. Now this is what learners want in the classroom. They want to speak, they want to talk, they want to chat, they want to brainstorm, they want to connect. And this was the single philosophy of B. I did not go to the schools to train teachers how to teach. All I wanted them to learn was how do learners learn. They are good teachers, they have their qualifications, they have their trainings. I am no one to teach them how to teach. And at the same time, this was a message for the learners as well. How should they be learning? It's not about learning the concepts as mere subjects and the topics. But learning itself is a skill. Once you learn something and once you learn how to learn, you can learn anything in your life, and that's possible. So, I didn't show this, but it was a thing pair share for all of you. I love this model of golden circle from Simon Sinek. The 3 P's over here. So connecting to the P's which Pavitra started, the 3 P's over here would be, the first one, that's why. Know the purpose of what you're doing in your life. And take it back to your classroom. Tell your learners, know the purpose of why am I learning this. The how. Know the process of how am I going to learn it better. Learner A would be learning in a different way, but learner B would learn in a different way. One size never fits all. It has never fit for everyone, for any given thing on planet Earth. Then why is our teaching learning such compartmentalized in the classroom? And the last one, that's the what. Don't worry about the product. If your purpose and the process is clear, the product will surely be clear. However, we focus a lot of time on the what. What are going to be my predicted grades if I study this much? What will come in the exam if I don't study this topic? Do teachers get these kind of questions? Yes. So this was my message to all the schools in the remote areas in India. Train your children to stop asking those questions and start asking relevant questions in the classroom. So what mechanism did I put in place? So before I could even go back to the schools, I believed in research. And thanks to Dr. Howard over here, he did bring in the concept of research in most of us who were the employees back then. Read before you go and implement. And these were a couple of research papers that I came across. The first one was from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it's about the students' perception about school. Why are there so many dropouts in schools in the US? And this research was conducted in 2006. And if you look at the statement over here, a perception that school is boring, feeling unmotivated, academic challenges, and the weight of real-world events. If you're not touching upon these things in the classroom, surely we are going to be left unattended. Education is no more about equality. Education is equity. Education is inclusion. Education is not a right anymore. It's a collective responsibility for each one of us. This was a research in 2001. I was myself in 5th grade at that point. And this was by Mark Prensky, and I love this research. Back then, he predicted that the future is going to look different. I think we were not ready to learn. Thanks to the pandemic, we all were pushed to learn. That learning can happen anywhere and at any time. And this research basically talks about the learners who are in the classroom today. They are the digital natives. The teachers are the digital immigrants. They certainly know much more than what we do in the classroom. But are we ready to accept that much more? Not always. And in connection to the same research paper, this is what he classified the learners into. And I was amazed to read this research paper. It's a short research paper. You can read it, not too long. But the 4 kinds of learners who we have in our classroom. And I think these kind of learners exist everywhere. In international schools, in national schools, in rural schools, in municipal schools, in top-notch schools, everywhere. Now, are we considering the different kinds of learners in the classroom? It's an ideal situation that we want that learners to be truly self-motivated. But that's not the case. And there are different reasons why learners come to school as well. So this question which learners usually have, that either you engage me in the learning process or you will see me enraged. Do we see that? I certainly saw that in my classroom as well. So how can we empower the learning efficacy? Now when I say learning efficacy, it's not just the learner alone. The teacher is a learner too. And how can we make the entire learning process effective? We have different models, and I'm sure each one of you over here knows John Hattie or some other researcher, the kind of research they have brought into education. But what I've tried to do is I've tried to sum up a couple of good practices which has helped reach out those 25,000 students and 10,000 teachers around the country. The jargons seem very familiar, right? Metacognition. I rather heard a student, Ishan, reminding the teacher, metacognition. I have used metacognition. Now, it's not just about thinking or learning about learning. These are, I would say, the superficial definitions. It's much more than that. Metacognition happens when there is self-regulated learning, and self-regulation happens when there is an awareness of the being. What am I capable of and what am I not capable of? And it's okay to be not capable of everything. And that's the simple mantra of individual success. So how do we decode this? Now, before we think about self-regulated learning as a skill, it's really important to understand that metacognition will not happen on its own. First, you really need to work on the cognition. And there are only a few learners in the classroom who are on the cream layer, I would say, who are ready with the cognitive skills. The others are waiting for the teachers to drive them towards learning. So it's basically the process of knowing, understanding, resonating, connecting, and learning things. Now, a lot of teachers are worried about, no, I need to do metacognition in my classroom. But first check, are they really ready with the cognition itself? And that's where teacher trainings usually go wrong. We do trainings, we do workshops, we do fancy PDs, but if it's not meeting the classroom practice, it's certainly not going to help the teacher nor the students. Metacognition is a step ahead of cognition. Of course, we know the definition of it, but it's about helping the learners find the purpose in the things they learn. And both of them are incomplete without motivation. Now, motivation is not something that you get at the supermarket. You have to literally drive it from within. Now, there are multiple factors for motivation, and we'll keep all the other factors aside, but let's talk about the one most important factor. I can see teachers in the room, I can see parents in the room. All I see is most of the adults in the room. The adults have the maximum capacity to drive the level of motivation for the young children. Now, that will happen when the adults themselves are motivated. Okay? And I borrow one more P from Pavitra, that's the passion. Nothing on this planet Earth is possible without passion. Am I a teacher by choice or am I a teacher by compulsion? I think if we start weighing both the options, we'll get the answer of where our motivation lies as a teacher. And that's the reason I always keep on telling this to all the teachers I engage in professional development. Don't do a workshop or don't do a PD just to get a certification. But do it because it will help you as an individual as well. And again, I'm going back to the concept of being, belonging, and becoming. It starts with me first. Now, how can all of this be done in the classroom? So the aim of my keynote was to bring all the theoretical things into classroom actionable points, because that's what a lot of teachers keep telling me. Akash, I'm not a researcher. I can't read a research paper and decode the findings. Can you help me do that? So I was like, fine. So I have tried to put it into 6 doable points. I'll quickly take them through you. The first one is the teacher's understanding of what metacognition, self-regulated learning, or learning to learn means need to be cleared. Because these things try to overlap with each other, they sound synonymous, and there is a gray area between 2 or 3 concepts. Now, how can teachers do that? Of course, the teachers can do it by multiple methods, reading books, journals, articles, but most importantly, by implementing it. And I have put a simple formula over here. I think we all can try doing it in our own lives and then try to give it back to the students. The formula is to plan, monitor, and evaluate. And it's a cyclical process. It's not like in a one direction. You don't plan and then monitor and then evaluate and then stop. If things don't work, you go back and plan again. So let me help you further. You would be like, Akash, this is still theoretical. Let me give you an example. There is a question. A bakery sells cupcakes for £1.5 each. If they sold 25 cupcakes on Monday and 32 cupcakes on Tuesday, how much money did they make in total? Now, this is from a grade 3 or I think grade 2 or 3 math classroom. Now, these mathematical skills are computational thinking skills which the learner is going to need for life, no doubt. Now, we all get perplexed when we see these story sums or word problems. I might be good at math, but here I need to know my language really well. How can I do that? Start by planning. And I think these things happen really, really implicitly in a learner's mind if taught well. So the teaching needs to happen explicitly. The process will happen implicitly on its own. So the learner might start thinking, hey, wait, I need to think about how we have done these problems in math lessons before, and let me choose the best strategy. Oh, I know, I have to start by writing out the problem as an algebraic equation. The learner is going to monitor what the planning looks like. Has this improved my understanding of the task? Let me check it again. Yes, I know this is something similar to simultaneous equation, where there are one variables or more than one variables. Once the task is done, the learner goes and evaluates their own task. I know this much, I'm ready to move on to the next step. Now you would be like, Akash, this looks really simple. Yes, it does look simple to you and me, but not for a 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. And is the teacher capable of transferring her or his understanding to the child? And that's the reason, this point which I made, teachers can regularly engage in acquiring professional understanding and skills. These are not merely professional development workshops and certifications. At DSB, we have learning walks, where we walk into each other's classroom, we learn, and we see what best is happening in the other teacher's class. And probably teach children these skills explicitly. Another example for you from John's geography class. By the way, John used to be one of my favorite students at DSB, so I wanted to remember him when I thought of coming here again. This is from John's geography class, and John is somewhere in grade 8 or 7. Any idea what is John trying to do over here? Research, okay. What else? Gather information, problem solving, what else? Synthesis, summarizing, developing his confidence level. What is John trying to do over here? Teacher gave an assignment, John knew something about it, but he was not satisfied with his work. He moved on, tried to do it differently. Innovating, experimenting with his own learning, okay? Becoming independent, lovely. Now the next point is, of course, the teachers need to learn these skills first. And that's the gray area which I've seen as through all the visits I've done to schools across the country, rather the region. A lot of these terminologies are like a verbal diarrhea. We speak them out, but we hardly understand them, okay? So teacher really needs to train the children around these things, on how do they plan, they monitor, and they evaluate. So I'm borrowing it from my previous slide. The same thing. I've given an example. Imagine it's a music class, and a student is expected to compose a song, okay? The teacher would say, hey, I have done my part of teaching you the unit. I have done everything. My lesson plans are done. It's your responsibility now. Now, the independent learning skills won't come on its own. It needs to be nurtured. So these are a couple of prompts I've put on the screen, how the learner would start planning, how the learner would start monitoring, and how the learner would start evaluating. And I was talking to Sir because he did not have a partner when we did the talk time. And one important thing he mentioned about was asking questions. Effective questioning is one of the most prominent pedagogical, I would say, approach which we underestimate in our classrooms. Not the questions from the teacher. The learners asking the questions to themselves, to their peers, or to the teacher. And these are some of the questions which learners do ask themselves sitting quiet. But if we make them vocalize it, verbalize it, make it visible, they become confident and independent learners. So I have tried to put this model a little, I would say, in a broader aspect. in 7 stages. Okay? I have an example for this as well. The 7 stages include, first, you activate a prior knowledge for the child. So imagine the teacher has to teach the students causes of World War I in history. Now the teacher would first try to understand how much my students are already aware of this topic. Once it's done, the teacher explicitly helps them with the strategy. We all use either the T chart, the Y chart, the fishbone diagram, or the diamond 9, etc., etc. Now in this case, I have used a fishbone diagram to help my children learn that. Now, just by giving them these kind of models and templates is not going to help. It's like giving a novice learner a bicycle and asking them to ride a bicycle. The person would be like, where do I start with? What do I do with this? So the teacher helps them to decode this diagram, and the teacher models it first for the child. You know what? On the top level, we put the causes. Let me show you how it's done. Once that is done, the teacher takes a pause and does not cognitively overload them with more strategies. The teacher checks whether the child has understood the concept of using this template. And then comes the guided practice. The teacher does one more example to help them understand it. And on the basis of that, there is independent practice and structured reflection in the end. And I think if teachers start following this method in the classroom, of course, you don't need to tell them that we are at stage 1 activating prior knowledge. No, it's to be done in the classroom with them. And you can certainly do this with your reception class learners and your IB learners. So the younger ones or the older ones, they both get benefited out of this. And there are many such templates in the teaching community, which we always remember as metacognitive strategies. But how do we use these strategies is still a big question in the education community. And this is one of the research I did, where I tried to identify where should the maximum, I would say, focus be, or who should be at the focus when we talk about these 7 steps. If you see at the top level, the student's independent learning stage is very minimal. But it's the teacher's responsibility to make the learners independent towards the end. And if that's not achieved, even if we have the A-star holders in our class who are dependent on the teacher, I would say they are good grade catchers, but they are not good learners. And that's a big, big, big question mark for us. Are we developing their learning skills, or are we developing their grade catching skills? Okay? And this is, by the way, just an example to show you. Most of the times when I visit schools for quality assurance checks, I see the teachers doing everything, the experiments, the teaching, the talk time, and I'm like, where is the learner learning? It's the teacher doing everything. And they don't understand what I'm trying to tell them about the teacher talking less and learners talking more. So this is just to help you understand that. Another example about learners and the metacognition and the teacher's ability to train them is giving them the right level of challenges. I think that cognitive overload theory is still not understood by many, because we are always perplexed by the fact that I have to complete my syllabus. Now that would always happen. It has never, I would say, escaped any teacher's life ever. We all are always bombarded with it. But at the start of the academic year, if I'm aware of my curriculum, the breakdown of my curriculum, I'll certainly be in the position to support my learners' learning journey. And I started coining this word called thunks. Okay? So when I used to teach IBDP psychology here, my teaching was, I don't have any of my students here, but one of my students, Sanchita, recently graduated from the King's College, and she did her BSc in psychology. So that's my certificate of achievement. Yeah. So there are many such case studies and stories we have from this school itself. And I think the thunks helped those students back then. They were a little perplexed. Akash sir, you're not teaching us everything. I said, no, there are a couple of things I will teach. There are a couple of things you will decode. I'm there to support you. So the thunks are nothing but chunks which help them to think. And that's thunks. Okay? Don't just give them chunks. Part A, you will do. Part B and C, I will do. No, but they really need to know what am I going to do with that part A. How do I decode this? It's like a gift box, but there is a way you want the person to open the gift box to arrive at the gift in a really desirable manner. Imagine there is a glass vase inside the gift box and I'm literally shaking it up to open it up. I'm not going to get the gift in the end. Learning is just like that. So you really have to be patient and I would say ready enough to train them to open that gift box. So tongues help them when it comes to the cognitive overload. Be it our grammar lessons, be it the formulas in math, be it the equations in science, or dates in history, or the places in geography, or any other subject, try to understand the chunks, give them the tongues so that they think around it. Whatever you think they are not able to do it on their own, you take the ownership over there. And I think that certainly helps them to understand what's my role in the learning process. The most important part, which is underestimated, and that's the reason I wanted to start it with that activity in the morning. I work with Cambridge, and at Cambridge we are doing this research for many years, rather now it's becoming popular, on oracy. Learning through talk and learning to talk. As children, how many of you know that this is called a watch? How many of you know it? We all know it? Who taught it? Who taught it to you? Or this is a chair. Who did teach it to you? Your parent taught it to you, or did you hear someone speaking it out? Get the chair, keep the chair, don't push the chair, and then you understood as an infant or a toddler, oh, this kind of an object is called chair. For many years, I think most of us were confused, watch or clock. And then clock is on the wall, watch is on the wrist. Yes, I think the present generation is further confused because watch is on the phone. So, how are we helping them to learn? So learning happens through talk, and there is enough research on this planet to help teachers realize that oracy develops not just their cognitive skills, but also their social emotional skills, help them build better relationships with the teacher, with the peers, with themselves, and vocalize their learning. So do this as much as possible, and I think there is enough research going around on dialogic teaching, effective questioning. I have seen it in a couple of schools. They have Socratic seminars. We have all the, like, I was in one of the TEDx a while back. That's an example of this. The child is able to, the pupil is able to vocalize and explain what he learned in his own way, in his own version. Now, just doing these fancy conferences, teacher-led, student-led conferences is not going to help. And that's what I keep telling a lot of schools, don't have anything scripted. The more we have things scripted, children really do not know that why. All they know is, my teacher has told me that when my parent walks into the room, I have to explain them what did I do in this term. Student-led conferences in most of the schools. Now, can we give that ownership and that agency and that accountability to the learners? You explain it in the way you want it. Now, the child will be able to explain it only when you have given them the right opportunities. It's like giving them the right toolbox. And the last one, helping them to manage all of this effectively, because time, I think we all have 24 hours in a day. There is no concession that, oh, you are a student, you get 2 hours extra. Oh, you are a teacher, you get 10 hours extra in a day. No, we all have the same number of hours. How we organize ourselves, how do we set our goals, and how do we get the work done in the right manner is really important. And a lot of students struggle in their learning journey, because what they see is, I don't get the grades and the marks I need. We have all these fancy theories and I don't know what not. We talk about multiple teaching learning aids. Everything will make sense to them once they understand, how am I going to do it, why am I doing it, and what is the benefit of doing it. And to do this, I have one more example for you from Nick. This is the last case study. So Nick knew that to revise properly, he would need no tech time. With a little help from his father, Nick made his bedroom more like a study room than a games room during his IGCSE revision. Each evening, at 7 o'clock, just after dinner, Nick would switch off his phone and go upstairs to revise. First, he would check his revision plan and get out what he needed before steeling himself to do some hard work. Strategy number 1 was always a quick flashcard challenge, mixing up his cards from his different subjects before testing himself. Then Nick would test himself on different topics with past papers or simply seeing what he could recall with a blank piece of paper before ticking them off his revision plan. Expecting his usual stillness, after 45 minutes, Nick would grab a drink and a cookie before getting back to his revision. At the end of his revision session, he would end with the nightly ritual of returning to his revision plan to chalk up his victories and losses. Okay? I learned this when we were actually made to do tutoring sessions with learners. But it was a good learning for me, because until then I was under the impression as a teacher, no, the child is 15-year-old, the child can do on his own. No, they cannot do it on their own. But that doesn't mean we have to be helicoptering them. We really need to give them that space, time, and energy to think about their own ways of learning, but giving them the right tools. So what are the right tools over here? So I've tried to quote Zimmerman's research over here. Start by setting specific short-term goals. They all are worried about the long-term goals. Will I get the predicted grades in place? Will I get all 7 points? Will I get all A stars? That's their long-term goal. Help them realize the reality. Look at the short-term goals first. So for example, Nick executing his revision plan, or else the revision plans are always in the folder. It never comes out. Adopting powerful strategies for attaining the goals. What am I going to do? I am Nick. My way of learning is different from hers, from his. I'm not going to copy their strategies. I'm going to work out on my own strategies. What Nick does is, he enjoys the flashcards. She may like something else, he may like something else. Monitoring the performance for signs of progress. Rather than waiting for the final 7 or an A star, start looking at those checkpoints. Am I doing well? If not, what can I do better? So Nick is monitoring his progress by answering some past paper questions. What after that? Restructuring one's physical and social context to make it compatible with the goals that one has set. So since Nick was sure my room looks more like a gaming space, I am going to convert this into a learning space now. I think that's the level of motivation a candidate should have. Managing time effectively, we talk about it, but we never train them to do it. So Nick gives himself an appropriate break that, you know what, I think this is going to hamper my brain. Let me get up, get some coffee, get the cookie, get some water, take a fresh round and come back. And self-evaluating one's methods. I was talking to one student a while back. Evaluation is not assessment. Assessment is the process with which we understand how much we have learned and what we have not learned. Evaluation is finding out my own strengths and limitations to achieve those assessment outcomes. And I think as students, they really get confused between assessment and evaluation. And last one, attributing the causation and adapting to future methods. Basically, if something did not work out, how am I going to change it further? I think if we start explicitly training our students with these strategies, they would certainly know how do they utilize their time, organize themselves. And don't you think these are lifelong skills? These are not even softer skills. These are essential skills for any of us. Like Pavitra mentioned, she had a flight, she returned to Mumbai, now she's flying back again. Same happened with me. I arrived this morning at 4. But I didn't work on my presentation. I sent it to Ritika last night because I wanted to add 2 QR codes. But the presentation was ready almost a week back. I can't wait at the last minute. Tomorrow is my exam, I'm going to sit and study tonight. Of course, the child is going to go through different motions. Towards a conclusion, these are some of the common misconceptions about learning how to learn. Okay? One of them is, this can only happen in older kids. No. It can also happen with 3-year-olds if properly trained. But to make that happen, the teacher needs to be trained in a proper manner. Secondly, you can't separate it from the subject knowledge. Most of the times people think that this is a skill which can happen anywhere. No, you really need to tag them with a topic or a concept so that it becomes relevant for them. Otherwise, they are really not able to make any connection. And lastly, learning how to learn represents higher order of thinking and is therefore more important than mere cognition or subject knowledge. False. It's as important as cognition itself, because not every learner in your class is ready for metacognition. So you will have to start from cognition to metacognition, both of them combined with motivation. And that's what is self-regulated learning. And if you would like to read more, I'm a researcher, so I always love backing it up with research papers, articles. What I've done is I've tried to collate all the things that I have referred to on this sheet. I put it on a Google Drive. Please feel free. This is a PD for yourself. And yeah, whatever you like, you can take it out from this. And if you have something more, you can always write it back to me. My email ID is akash.raut@cambridge.org. So thankfully, my B and Cambridge's mission aligns with each other. Like my B and DSB's mission aligned with each other. And I think through this mission, again, I'm coming back to the same story of borderless education. Education has no borders. If a student in my class deserves it, a student in your class deserves it too.